Good afternoon or good evening, or if you're in another part of the world, maybe it's morning. Again, my name is Victoria Romero, the Vice President for Enrollment. I had the privilege of signing your offer of admission, so congratulations to students and to parents and families. Congratulations on all the hard work that your student did over the last several years. I also want to say a thank you to the staff and the faculty that have worked to put together the programming we've had over the last several weeks, but specifically this last week during the Admitted Student Week. And this is kind of ending the formal part of that program that we often would have on campus during a full day, but it's been robust. You've had opportunities to talk with members of different departments, from study abroad to Dean of Students Office, faculty from various departments, learning about wellness at our Tiernan Fieldhouse, and opportunities to engage with current students. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Today, I'm going to moderate a panel with 3 colleagues and 3 friends, and I will let them do their own introductions, and I will start with the president of the college, Laura Tiedens.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. And I'm sorry about my little head shake there. As some of you can probably relate to, I had a child entering the room, and I was trying to subtly communicate to this was not the best time. Anyway, I'm thrilled that you're joining us here today. I see the count down at 92 of you who are with us this afternoon. And I'm really pleased that you are here and eager to learn more about Scripps College. You can see all of us have Scripps backgrounds behind us, which may make parts of our bodies disappear as we talk. But we also wanted to give you an impression of our really beautiful campus to give you, to remind you. I think many of you, I'm sure, have looked at many pictures, and some of you probably have visited. So as Victoria said, my name is Laura Tiedens. I'm the president of the college. And I think the president's job is an extremely difficult one to describe. My days and tasks are really varied. But the way I tend to think about it is that I've got colleagues like the 2 who are actually the 3 who are on this panel with me, all of whom are vice presidents. And they really are responsible in many ways for running how the college works today. And what I do is spend time thinking about the college tomorrow and figuring out how we run the college for tomorrow. And so that's at the heart of really everything I do for the college. And I think that will become more clear, and I hope it will become more clear as we continue to talk this afternoon. So I've been at Scripps College for 4 years, and they've been an incredibly challenging and wonderful set of years where I've discovered all of the wonderful, wonderful things about Scripps College and gotten to know some amazing people and had some wonderful experiences. But because I've been here only 4 years, I'm the newest on this panel to Scripps College, though I hardly count 4 years as new anymore. It's like I'm finishing my senior year. I still really do remember the process that I went through and the thinking I went through when I chose to come to Scripps. And I realize it's different to come to a college for a job than it is to come for school. Those are different choices, but I think there are some commonalities, and so I wanted to share with you what brought me to Scripps. Prior to coming to Scripps, I was at Stanford University, where I was a faculty member and a senior administrator in the business school there. And I was, fine. I wasn't looking for a new job. I didn't necessarily want to become a president. But when I learned about Scripps and was contacted by Scripps, I actually, to my own surprise and rather quickly, fell in love with it. And I thought it was a really special opportunity and a very unique place. And so the things that led me to that sense were really, I think, features that I hope you already know about, but I just want to reinforce. And so the first of these was actually about our core curriculum in the humanities. To the extent that you all have looked at the curriculums of the different colleges that you are studying, what you'll see is that the humanities sort of thrive and live in very different ways on various different campuses. And At Scripps, the humanities is alive and well in a really exciting way. And having come from Stanford, where there is a struggle to keep them alive, it was exciting to me to see a place that's done that so well. And I'll just say as a side note, Stanford is starting a humanities curriculum that actually looks shockingly like ours. But we've been doing ours for really the last 80 years in different forms. So that was one thing that I was really excited about. And then I would say while I've been here, I've become only more impressed with it, particularly, as odd as this will sound, when I talk to our science faculty. So our science faculty teach students from especially 3 of the colleges right here. And so they know the 3 colleges really deeply. And they love all of the colleges and they love the students from all of the colleges. But what they say about the Scripps students is that they're special and different. And they're special and different because they take a humane approach to the study of science. And the faculty attribute that to our humanities core. And I think that's exactly right, that no matter what our students major in and ultimately do, the core instills in them this sort of humanitarian and humanist perspective in all of those different areas. So that was one thing. The second thing was the consortium, which I think offers lots of opportunities. I'm sure we're going to talk about them more in this panel for students. But as an educator and someone who has worked in education and studied different forms of education, and also as someone who studied organizational design and development, the consortium is fascinating and unique. It's really a one of a kind. You can't find any other system like this. And I think allows us to deal with some of the challenges and goals of education in a different way than anywhere else can do it. And what I can tell you is all of my peer presidents at all other liberal arts colleges really are envious of the consortium. It allows us as a liberal arts college to be and do all kinds of things that most liberal arts colleges that are standalone simply can't. The third aspect that really drew me to Scripps was its being a women's college. While I was at Stanford, I did a lot of work in the business school in particular about women in business, women in organizations, and really trying to understand why the glass ceiling has been as persistent as it has been. And so I did this from a very theoretical level and also a really practical level, working with our students and alums. And I was really struck, actually, before I even came to Scripps, about the power of women's education to advance women. That hands down, it really is the most effective intervention in women's advancement that the world has ever seen. I don't think we understand all the reasons for that. And I would say after 4 years of being here, I understand the feeling and experience of it, but I still can't really explain the science of it. And I think if we could, we would pick up those pieces of women's colleges and we'd put them everywhere else in the world. But we don't really know what all the pieces of the magic are. But I think from my time here, what I would say is there is something magical and wonderful about what happens here that makes a gigantic difference for what happens to women when they go out in the world and chase their dreams. So those 3 things brought me here, and I mention that because I think they're relevant to what you and your students are thinking about, but also because I want to say that after having been here for 4 years, I was absolutely right to come here for those things. Those things aren't just things that we say in brochures or mention on the sidelines. They actually do describe some of the greatest strengths of the place and part of what really separates us from so many other colleges and makes this such a wonderful place to be.
Thank you, President Teens. Next is Amy Marcus Newhall, the Dean of Faculty and the Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Hello, everybody. And since I can't see you, I don't know whether you were on my welcome session on Monday. And so I may repeat a couple of things if you were there, but I'm so glad to be here. And so much of what President Teens just said, I will concur with. So first of all, I do want to congratulate all of you. And I want to do that in not only my role as the Dean of Faculty, but also as a fellow parent. I did mention on Monday, I am the parent of twins who are seniors in high school at this moment, or pretending to be in some ways because they're not actually in the high school, but they're remotely. but who are going through a process, as are we the parents, about decisions of college. And so it's not simply that I'm going to speak to you and say, hey, this is what you should be thinking about with no knowledge. It is that I am absolutely in the same spot as all of you, working with both of my kids and thinking about colleges broadly. So I congratulate you on having your student be accepted not only to Scripps College as an excellent college, but probably many other colleges, in a time when we know getting into college is very hard, and the work and the effort that students put into this throughout their school and then high school is simply remarkable. And so congratulations to you. In saying that I am the parent of twins, what I see is not this as a challenge or an uncomfortableness, but actually a really exciting time as students begin to think about the next 4 years of their life. It's a challenge, it's motivating, it's inspiring. And so I hope that whatever decisions are made, that these next 4 years will be as wonderful for your kids as they are for mine. So I am the Dean of the Faculty. If Lara is the newest, not necessarily the youngest, but the newest, then I am the oldest, I think in both respects, but I have been at Scripps now for 28 years, and I have stayed here for 28 years because I love to be here. That is, it's not like, oh, you know, here I was, and there weren't other opportunities. That's not even the point. I love being at a women's college. I love being at Scripps College. I love being part of the consortium. And so my career has been and will continue to be here in a way that because of choice, not because of any other reason. So in my role as Dean of Faculty, so what I've done, I should say, I've been in the role of Dean of Faculty now for 9 years. Prior to that, I was in the psychology department for 18 years. And as you can tell, that doesn't add up to 28 because I'm now moving into my 10th year. But I was in the psychology department, loved being a faculty member, and moved into administration only to be able to do more and different for the institution, not because of greater ambition. So in that light, what do I do? In terms of the Dean of Faculty, what I spend the majority of my time doing is thinking about the academics, the curricular mission, and working with our faculty to provide the best education and the most unique education to your students and to all of the students who attend Scripps. And then I also oversee many academic departments such as study abroad or Denison Library or the registrar's office. So those areas that contribute to the academic mission. So briefly, I just want to go over a couple of things that I think are so unique about Scripps, and they will overlap tremendously with what President Teaden said. But one is just the importance of a liberal arts education. And I am biased because I attended a liberal arts. Unfortunately, it wasn't Scripps, but it was a nearby liberal arts. And it was so impactful for me that by the time I was graduating, what I was saying was, how can I continue to be at a liberal arts, being a lifelong learner, constantly challenging what I'm learning about, having a relationship with faculty that is unique in the way that one will never see, but being on the other side of it rather than the student than being a faculty member. And I realized the way to do that is to get a PhD and become a faculty member. And so that is how I ended up being at Scripps College by saying, I want to be, for my career, at a liberal arts college, because I think what it adds and provides to students is so impactful in terms of the breadth and the depth and taking general education requirements rather than a specific narrow approach to education. And I simply will say that in this challenging world, there is nothing more important than students who study at a liberal arts college, because what they get is a flexibility of thought, an ability to think about problems and solutions in a much more magnified and intentional way. And as we can all agree, we need more people who can think in this way, because we are experiencing many, many wonderful things and many complications all at the same time. So Lara briefly talked about the consortium, and I just want to say, this is always my line about the consortium as a psychologist: the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I clearly believe this about the consortium. There is truly nothing better. What students get is the small liberal arts one-on-one attention with the mid-sized research university opportunities in the classroom, outside of the classroom, in terms of lectures and opportunities. And it is truly a fabulous environment for learning. And briefly then, I won't go on in terms of a women's college because Lara did talk about that. But I always think that what I've learned is that students don't find their voice. This is often said about women who attend women's colleges, but they magnify, they develop more. They've come with a voice. You know your students. It is not that they didn't have a voice. By being at a women's college, all of the opportunities are open to them, and they find a place where they can even do better than what they did when they started. A couple things academically, and then I will stop so that we can answer questions. But, you know, I've talked about before the academic bookends. We are one of maybe only one where we have a 3-semester interdisciplinary core humanities program in the first year and a half, and a required senior thesis at the end of a career filled in by majors that give them the real depth and breadth. And what we see is that the choice of majors, the choice of double majors, and what people learn in the majors is heavily influenced by the foundational nature of our interdisciplinary core program. So that these things interact in ways that develop into very unique approaches to education. I also just want to say how we find being at Scripps as a supportive academic and nurturing place. Students won't be taught by teaching assistants. There will be one-on-one academic in the classroom. There will be academic advising. The faculty have chosen to be at Scripps just as your students are going to choose a college. They want to be here to interact with your students in the classroom, out of the classroom, and beyond graduation. I often have conversations with faculty about their relationships with students beyond graduation, and I too have wonderful relationships way beyond graduation. We can talk more about the resources in terms of academic advising, the math tutoring center, the writing center, the language lab, the tutoring that's available through Charlotte's office in terms of Dean of Students. But really, it's a wonderful opportunity for a great education with a supportive environment within the consortium. And so I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Amy. Next is Charlotte Johnson, our Dean of Students and Vice President for Student Affairs.
Thanks so much, Victoria, and congratulations everyone on your acceptance to Scripps and the opportunity to become part of what I think is a truly, truly unique community. My role here is Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. And I've been here a little longer than Lara. I've been here, I'm in the end of my 6th year, and not as long as Amy. Have been a number of places before Scripps. As the Chief Student Affairs Officer, including Colgate University and in New York, and Dartmouth in New Hampshire. So I started my career in another life as a lawyer, and spent a decade as a lawyer, really, as a corporate defense litigator, and loved it in many ways, and didn't ever think that I would end up in higher education. But obviously did, and I've spent now twice as much time in higher ed that I've spent as a lawyer, and I was a successful lawyer, and so it wasn't as if I was running from the law to something else, but I feel like the opportunity to be in higher education is just that it's been a gift, and one of the reasons it's been a gift is because of the power we have to help students transform, not just themselves, but their communities, and ultimately society. I came to Scripps because I was very interested in the idea of being at a women's college. And Lara's talked about that some, Amy's talked about that some, but let me just say that what's proven true here for me is that this is a place where women are presumed to be competent, presumed to have infinite capacity for creativity, presumed to be very smart. It's not a place where you have to prove it over and over again. And partially because of that, I often hear from faculty from other schools or from my colleagues from other schools who have no Scripps students or have these students in their classes about how wonderful it is to have Scripps students in courses because they speak up. They aren't afraid to voice their opinion. They do take on leadership roles in a variety of capacities. And I think that's part of the magic of Scripps that Lara was talking about. I think another aspect of Scripps that I've really come to appreciate is that we're not just about producing talking heads. So yes, all of the students who are admitted to Scripps and come here are very smart and very capable, but it's not just about knowledge and producing knowledge. It really is about producing compassionate citizens who care about their communities and want to know and want to develop themselves so that they can contribute to their communities both while they're here at Scripps and once they leave. What I'm responsible for here is the co-curricular experience. So student sort of life, we call it, outside of the classroom. And it includes student health and wellness, residential life, academic resources and services, the tutoring and academic accommodations, student co-curricular engagement, the Multicultural and Social Justice Center, Title IX, student conduct, and so on. I also participate, as we all do, as Amy does too, in a consortial group of our cohort or our peers at the other institutions, the other deans, and we have joint oversight of like campus safety, our student health center, and our counseling center, and some of the other resources available consortially as well. When I came to Scripps 6 years ago, you know, everyone said, well, what's your vision? What are your priorities? And so while they may not have been known specifically to me then, they have certainly evolved to where I think I'm able to condense them in just a few sort of 3 or 4 aspects. And one is, you know, at Scripps, we really seek to provide this high touch support environment. And as one example of that, I'll give you our primary contact dean structure. So every student before they get here is assigned a primary contact dean with the idea that the student will have that dean for their entire 4 years. The dean becomes a person to whom they can go to for questions big and small, for in addition for advice or to be connected to resources. I think that the primary contact deans are an example of the level of support and our philosophy that we really want to make sure no student here at Scripps falls through the cracks and doesn't have at least one point of contact that they can go to at any time for just about anything. The other aspect that makes Scripps special is the student connectedness piece. So an example of that is our residential vibrancy initiative and the way in which we sort of help students connect, not only in the residence halls, but connect to each other in programs outside of the residence halls. One of the positions that we have here now and have had for a few years is the community coordinator, and that's students sort of helping students organize community within our residential context. Student engagement and skill development are also sort of one of our priorities. And an example there would be our Alaska Leadership Center, which is about 5 years old now and focuses on women's leadership and the gaps in women's leadership and helps prepare our students in sort of for leadership positions, and not just for leadership positions because not everyone wants to be a leader, but helps them identify the talents that they have and the skills that they need to develop so that they can contribute to their community in whatever capacity they choose to do so. There is some integration of academic and student affairs, and as an example of that, Amy and I work together, and our staff and faculty work together on our First Gen program, where we support students who are the first in their family to actually attend college. So I'm going to close it out there because I know you all are now very anxious to ask us questions, and I will turn it over to Victoria for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. The first question is for President Teetens, and understandably, several of the questions are asking, what are the options the college are considering for the fall considering COVID-19? Oh, geez.
Sorry, I had to wait for the host to unmute me. Sure, so I really understand that all students are thinking about the fall, and I want to first assure you and your students that this is what I'm thinking about really night and day as well. I don't have a sort of definitive answer for you today. And I think, I know a lot of you on one side would really prefer that. And on the other side, I think you understand that there's a lot of unknowns at this point for all of us. And that this is a question both about educational institutions, but also much more broadly about public health. And so we'll make our decisions about this in conjunction with public health agencies. We're in very close contact with the LA County Department of Public Health and with the CDC, working on their recommendations about what we can do and when. Because as you all know from the lives that you're leading, things are unfolding quickly, unexpectedly, and without us always having a lot of foresight. The way in which we're approaching the question of the fall is really to plan for a number of different contingencies, right? So to be in a position to work with whatever comes our way. What I want to assure you of, and I hope you would know, is that it's our greatest hope that we will all be here and that your students will all be here come the fall on exactly the same timing that we always have. That's what we want the most. And we are going to, and we're working about how we could do that, but we're also making plans if the various kinds of restrictions that we hear from public health agencies don't make that possible in exactly the same ways that we've always done that. So we're trying to plan for the gamut, and we are also doing it in a way that is informed by experts and that is responsible to our immediate community and to the broader community. So let me give you a flavor of some of the things that we're working on so that just so that you can understand, but also so that you have a sense of the seriousness with which we take this. So in a lot of ways, what I've been in conversation with the senior staff about is that we don't have to sort of have a big fancy plan if everything goes exactly as it normally does, because we really know how to do that. We've done that many, many years, and we do an excellent job at that. So a lot of our planning is about what are the kinds of things that we see as most likely to need to change about the way we do things here at Scripps in order to work with restrictions that may exist at that time. So for example, we're doing a lot of work right now on our residence halls about how we could lower density in the residence halls, how we could increase social distancing, how we could increase the amount of cleaning and disinfecting that we do, so that we can, so that we could have a system that might be deemed as safe or might work for our community and for our students. We're similarly looking at our curriculum and our classrooms to see how we can assure that how in a classroom, I mean, we're very lucky in the sense that really all of our classes already are very small, and that's one of the things that is being highly recommended is, you know, to keep gathering small. And so so we don't have to do a lot of like, you know, where are we going to put the 50 big lectures that we have going on at every time. Most of our classes fit under most people's guidelines of size, but we're thinking a lot about like the physical layout of our classrooms and assuring that our faculty also have enough space around them, and again looking at cleaning protocols. So we're similarly working on thinking about our dining hall and what are the options about ways that we can do dining in a way that during this period would be safer. We're also working on a partnership with our local hospital to help us with issues around testing and care for people who get sick, and working on finding, locating and contracting with isolation space so that if that was needed, it would be available. So we're really trying to figure out if we are able to bring people back, do it in a way that recognizes that this virus exists and that we don't want to contribute to its spread. So that if we're going to be open, we need to be open in a way in which we can really diminish the chances of that happening for the protection, again, of your students and for the community that we exist in. And it may be that we find out that those are sufficient things, that those sort of conform with the way in which public health officials believe that all of us can be living our lives in the fall. or it may be that they don't. And this is part of what we are working with these public health agencies to try to assess and to make good judgments about. And, you know, we bring the expertise of how our campus typically works, of what's possible with the buildings that we have. And they bring the expertise of really how does viral spread happen, and how do you manage it in a context where a lot of people are living and working together. So we're doing a lot on that front. And then we also, you know, are trying to think creatively, as you've probably read in other in press outlets, about various approaches in higher ed, but we're looking at our calendar to see what we might be able to do there and to see if that would bias anything, looking at the way our classes are scheduled. Of course, here in Claremont, that's a little bit of a different project than it is at any other college, because those decisions are not just decisions that Scripps would make. We can make decisions about our own residence halls, but when it comes to academic calendar, those are decisions that we make, the 5 colleges, all together, because our students so frequently take classes across the consortium. We are also, of course, looking at what it would be like if, and we do consider this to be not the ideal scenario, but if we are unable to have students back on campus, how would we deliver the best possible curriculum in that context? So we're really keeping all of these possibilities alive. And again, I know that for a lot of us, just having some clarity and certainty would be welcome. I think if we had to provide that right now, we wouldn't make the best decision for everyone, because we simply don't know enough about either the state of the virus around us, nor do we really know enough about what are ways to make institutions like this safe, and can we get to a level of safety that would make things work. So I think it's well worth it to take the time to really, for more of that data to come in, for more of the studies to be done, for the health professionals to kind of really narrow in on what their recommendations are for this kind of living situation. And then we will work with those in the best possible way. And as you can tell, we're already starting to work with those. So that's what I can tell you about the fall at this point. We will clearly keep in good touch with students who are planning on coming here. And as we know things, we will let you know. And we, of course, understand that you will need to know in order for, you know, in due time and in good time to make any travel arrangements to get here. And so we're sensitive to that. We'll work with that, and just be in close touch with you.
Thank you, President Teedens. The next question is for Amy. Amy, how do first-year students sign up for classes, and how do they get an advisor? And I'm going to combine 2 questions. The next one is, do the other colleges in the consortium use teaching assistants in their classes?
Okay, so let me take number 1 first. So all first-year students have an academic advisor that is selected. If a student has said, I want to major in something, we try to match that person up if we have a faculty member available in the broad area, philosophy, psychology. That isn't always possible, but we do our best. We love when students come in undecided, so that is not a problem at all. And then they are put with a faculty member in any discipline. That happens during orientation in the fall. And then there are sessions in which the faculty academic advisors meet directly with the students, both as a group and individually, to discuss the classes for the fall semester. At this point, all students are required to take 1 course that is already preset in the fall, which is Core 1. And you've probably heard about that, but the topic is truth, and all of our first years take that class in the fall semester. The other 3 classes are decided in consultation with the academic advisor. They can be courses to meet the general education requirements. They can be courses to try an intro-level course of a major that somebody thinks they want to do, or they could be intro-level courses because somebody doesn't know what they want to do and they want to try out an anthropology class, a music class, a science class, whatever the case might be. So that's how advising works. And then that student keeps that advisor through the first 2 years. At the time that they select their major, by the end of their 2nd year, they then can switch and should switch to an academic advisor in the discipline that they decide to major. students actually really have a hard time giving up their academic advisor for the first 2 years. And so what we always say is, you can still go see that person, but what you want is the expertise of somebody in the major that you select, or majors. And oftentimes if students have 2 majors, they'll have 2 academic advisors. In terms of, are there teaching assistants at the other colleges? Very rarely. I do know that a few of the other colleges will have somebody who helps them, maybe from Claremont Graduate University, but it is only as an assistant. It isn't somebody who teaches lab sections or course sections or anything like you might see at a research university. And it is absolutely few and far between. What we do at Scripps is we don't have any teaching assistants that aren't Scripps students, but in some of our classes, we have what are student helpers, so to speak, that is student assistants in a class, so that they're seniors, and when your student might be taking a, let's say, a psych stats course, if they're struggling at all, there's a student who's a senior who's taken that course and is available in addition to the faculty member to guide students if they're struggling, or even just to talk to them about how to use the material, even if they're not struggling.
Thank you, Amy. Charlotte, the next question is for you. They've been asked, can you talk more about the LASPA leadership program? Who's eligible, and what are the program? What kind of program encompasses at the leadership program with the Leadership Institute?
Sure. So everyone's eligible. So the goal of the LASPA Leadership Center ultimately is that every student is impacted by some offering of the center itself. So so from first years to seniors. We have a number of different ways that students can intersect with the center, and one of those ways is through workshops, for instance. So we have workshops to develop particular leadership skills, for example, conflict resolution. Workshops for students who are interested in learning financial literacy and how to handle their finances. The center also offers a number of grants, so that's for students who want to do summer projects where they're impacting community. There's a book club, there's a reading club. So there are all kinds of ways intentionally for students to get involved and start thinking and reflecting on leadership, how they develop themselves as leaders, but more importantly, how they, through their, the unique talents that they bring to the community and to their own communities, impact those communities in a positive way. So LASPA is very much founded on the principle of action, and leadership through action. And that seems really appropriate for the Scripps community because our students come here having been involved in so many things before arriving at Scripps. And the Leadership Center is meant to take all of that energy and all of that aspiration and help students take it to the next level in terms of their leadership abilities.
Thank you, Charlotte. Amy, a follow-up question to majors is, what if a student has a major at one of the other campuses? How does that work?
Yeah, so that is the beauty of the Claremont colleges. So students can take classes at any of the colleges, and what a student can do is major off campus in any major that we don't offer. So if we offer politics, then you don't major in politics at one of the other colleges, but you absolutely are encouraged to take classes at the other colleges for that major. But for example, we don't have a sociology major, and our students major at either Pitzer or Pomona in sociology. They graduate from Scripps College. This is always the question that I get, but do they graduate from Scripps? Yes, they're a Scripps student with an off-campus major. They have an off-campus major advisor in a faculty member from that college, but they also continue to have a Scripps advisor. So for example, I'm a social psychologist, and I often was the home college advisor for our sociology majors because I was the closest link. And then there's students from the other colleges who major at Scripps when we're the only ones that have that major. So we are the only Claremont College, for example, to offer the language of Italian. And so students from the other colleges major off campus at our campus.
Thank you. There's a follow-up question regarding tutoring, and if a student needs additional help with tutoring. So I'm not sure if Amy or Charlotte, I don't know which one of you want to take that, but just the tutoring options available to our students.
So you want me to start, Amy, or would you like to start?
Well, I'll start, and you get to do the practical because your office provides it. I just simply want to say this is a great collaboration between the Dean of Faculty and the Dean of Students office. So we have free available tutoring for all students in classes. So they go through the Dean of Students, and Charlotte can talk about that. But what we use are, again, upper division students who have taken those classes to guide through students through a tutoring process if they need it. And I just want to clarify that tutoring can be for students who may be struggling, but it also can just be for students who want to do more in terms of the thinking about this. And Charlotte's office provides that, so I'll let her speak more to the process.
So, I mean, the process really is simple. It is you come to the office, you identify the need for a tutor, and then we work with the faculty to try to find you a tutor in that particular subject. And it will be a student, another student, usually a Scripps student, almost always a Scripps student, who's taken that course and done well, that will serve as a tutor. I will say, in addition to, and tutoring is, you know, I don't want to say necessary. It is sort of unlimited in a way, right? I mean, within the constraints of the time that a particular tutor has to offer to a particular student. But it's done individually, and it's also done in groups. So for instance, we have the math spot, and math tutoring is often done in groups, and where we can, we use groups to tutor. We've done another thing in the last couple of years, which has caught on with students, and that is our academic coach. So we have some students who don't necessarily want a tutor, but especially the first year want to talk with someone about study habits and their approach to studying or preparation for classes. And we found the academic coaching piece to be very successful over the last couple of years, and hope to and will continue it next year.
Thank you.
Victoria, could I add one more thing? We didn't talk about the writing center, and I think the writing center is so important. So we also have a writing center with 3 staff members and many students who serve as peer mentors. And this is where you'll walk in, and if you're working on a paper or you're trying to come up with a thesis idea or an outline, you can go to the writing center and work with students who are trained and or the staff members who are faculty. And it's a wonderful, we renovated it last year, and it's just a beautiful setting where students spend a lot of time really engaging on how to improve their writing. And so that's another important resource.
Thank you. Charlotte, you're popular today.
No.
We talked about the first generation program, but the next question is, what support systems are in place for students of color who are not considered first generation?
So I'd say, in addition to the primary contact dean, which every student is assigned, we have our SCORE Multicultural or Social Justice Center. And the SCORE Center focuses on underrepresented and communities, and those communities which have the potential for marginalization. So many students of color find a home at SCORE in terms of a place to go, not only to meet each other, but to discuss issues in common and issues of interest. And I think that the sort of quintessential, sort of the essence of SCORE for me, and well, for students, and this is what students have told me, is that they find support in each other and in the various programs and workshops that are offered. SCORE is also, I think, one of those instances where the faculty have made a difference in terms of being able, not just faculty of color either, but many of our faculty of color connect with students of color through some of the programming that happens at SCORE.
Thank
Charlotte,
you.
would you
Go ahead.
I was going to say, Charlotte might also want to just, I'm thinking about the consortial opportunities in terms of OBSEA and CLSA that people may want to know about.
Yes, so I mean, one of the beauties of the consortium is that students can have resources and can find connections on and off campus. And there's consortial resources like the Office of Black Student Affairs, Chicano Latino Students Association. Amy, thanks for reminding me. The Queer Resource Center. All of those resources are places where students also go to find connections, to be connected, and to sort of feel that sense of belonging that is, we find so important in a student's both success here at Scripps and the degree to which they maximize the educational opportunities that we offer here.
Thank you. This parent wrote, the campus is beautiful, but felt isolated when we visited. Can you speak to how often students go downtown, off campus, or into LA, or for other experiences, and what do those look like? So I open that to anyone, because I think there's ways that students do it in co-curricular, the ways academically we're accessing Los Angeles, and obviously being part of an urban environment, an important part of our own planning. So whoever would like to go first.
Well, I might just start with that because part of our current strategic plan is a pillar that we call mission-driven outreach, but it really is about building greater connections between Scripps and the outlying communities. I mean, one just hypothesis I would have is that you may have visited in the summer, because in the summer, I think it does feel so quiet on campus. And during the school year, I think it's of course just so much less because there are students everywhere. And since we almost always have nice weather, they're not just everywhere, but they're outside and they're laying on the grass and all of that. So, so I would say I sort of want to answer your question in almost two opposing ways. I mean, I think what we find over and over again is that our students, both at our campus and the other campuses, but ours probably the most, they love our campus, and it is one of the reasons why people come. And so I would say they spend the huge majority of their time on our campus or the neighboring campuses. They do absolutely go to the Village, which is what that little downtown area is called. Usually by the time they're seniors, they feel like they've kind of been there, done that about everything in the Village, although they have their favorite boba places, and there's a restaurant that bizarrely sort of has a nightclub behind it, and so that's also a popular place. I think our students can easily and do take the metro into various locations within LA, and I know many students get internships in LA proper while they are students, and typically when they do that by going on the train to that location. The train is super easy. You can walk to the Claremont station from campus, and that's a piece of cake. But I would also say, as Victoria alluded to, we have been really pushing ourselves to do a lot more programming to facilitate the relationship between our students, our faculty, and our surrounding areas. And that starts very early on. We have a relatively new program that we call Impact that students can sign up for, that has them building community with each other by working with community building organizations around LA and San Bernardino County. And that happens even before classes start. So that's a very cool thing. But also our faculty are really excited about this challenge of how to use LA in their classes. And so the faculty have been designing these new classes that we call humanities clinics, where they work with an organization around the community and sort of take a humanities kind of lens toward helping solve the problems that the organization is looking to solve. So those are really exciting. And then finally, we do lots of organized trips, both by faculty and attachment to classes, but also as co-curricular activities, all kinds of arts events and performances and just fun things to do either in LA itself or in the area. And we just last year, very exciting for us anyway, we purchased a bus to help us do that. And so, you know, next time you are on campus, you'll see we've got this nice big white bus with Scripps College and big letters across it. It's Wi-Fi enabled, which has really helped faculty who want to use it for their classes. They can actually use the bus also as a classroom. So I want to say both to the person who asked this, that our students, not all students do leave campus very much, and the ones who want to can easily do so.
Thank you. I think we're getting close to 5. There's some questions I think that could be some shorter answers. And well, no, I didn't mean that anyone was taking long. One is, can students have a car on campus? Charlotte?
So yes, they can. Students can. We don't, like some other schools, we don't have rules prohibiting first years from bringing a car to campus. And so yes, but most of our students don't. I think the majority of our students don't have a car on campus. because because they love camp. There's so much to do in Claremont. And if they want to go elsewhere, they can use a van. They can like do a loaner van here or a loaner car, or they can take the metro into the city.
Thank you. Amy, are there a lot of opportunities to participate in interdisciplinary research?
Yes, I mean, there's many opportunities to participate in research, in interdisciplinary research, and across the consortium. So students find what they're interested in and learn about opportunities, and you can work with faculty not only at Scripps, but across the Claremont colleges. And I always give an example as if you're a psychology major who happens to be interested in autism, we have a faculty member who does it, but doesn't have an autism clinic, but we have our students work at CMC in the autism clinic. And so there's lots of opportunities for what we call undergraduate mentored research. That can be during the academic year or the summer, and it can be for both disciplinary as well as interdisciplinary. But we have so many faculty at Scripps who are interdisciplinary in the way they are experts with even in a discipline, that the majority of research will have an interdisciplinary focus.
Thank you. Charlotte, what kind of events do the community coordinators put on?
So it varies depending on the community coordinator and their level of creativity, but we try to make it as simple and organic as possible. So they might have a lunch with their students. They organize trips into the village, the little, the adjoining town. They might organize a movie night. It runs the gamut. They organize game nights. They might get together with another community coordinator and have a yoga night, or get together with some other community coordinators, all of whom have a group of students they're sort of assigned to participate in some program that's happening on campus, like To Go Together, for instance, Scripps Presents. So there are just a variety of ways that the community coordinators can help students connect. The goal that we give them is to make sure that no student who's living in our res halls feels a sense of isolation. The point is to help every student find community, to find their people, and they do a good job of that.
Thank you. And Charlotte, again, how many years are students required to be housed on campus?
They have to live on campus their first year, and the majority, and they don't have to live on campus beyond their first year, but most of our students wouldn't dream of living anywhere else except campus. We have about, 30 to 50 students each year, usually seniors or upperclassmen, who decide they want to live off campus. But most students are sort of fighting to be on campus and in what they think is the best residence hall. I think they're all the best residence hall, but.
Lara, this is for you. How is the current shutdown affecting the college's finances?
Wow, to answer that one succinctly is a challenge. I mean, I will say, like many other sectors, this is a real disruption to our whole business model, and we've made some immediate kind of responses to that on our own campus in terms of, sort of not engaging in more hiring, in terms of not doing raises this year, so that we can contain the effect of those. And then, just like lots of people were asking earlier and we talked about earlier, depending on what happens in the fall, we'll have we'll be in the next sort of big variable on how large the impact is on the college's finances. So given what I've read in the press and imagine parents might be thinking about, what I want to really assure you about is that the college is in strong enough financial shape that I have no doubt that we will weather this crisis. Scripps is coming out the other side. We will be here when this virus is under control. I have no doubt about that. So I want you to be really, really confident in that. And in the meanwhile, we're going to have to do some things, like so many families are as well, to just tighten our belts as we all weather this. And you can see that we've begun to do that, and we may need to do more of that depending on how things play out.
Charlotte, the last couple of time for a couple more questions.
Okay.
Anonymous person wants to know, are guys allowed in the dorms?
Well, yes, they are. I don't, even if we said no, I don't know how we would police it, but we do have rules about guests. And so we discourage spending the night and that sort of thing. But yeah, guys are allowed in the res halls. In the res halls. I just laugh because you know, I'm thinking back on my own sort of college experience, and that was that was the bane of my father's existence, that the res halls were co-ed. So I understand the question.
Things that again I think parents might wonder about this issue is all of our res halls do have swipe ID necessary to get into them, so it's not like anyone can come in, it's anyone invited can come in, right? Only the students have actual access to the residence halls. That might be something a parent would want to know. And then as we talk about the fall and we talk about some of the changes that might be necessary given our current public health crisis, it may, things like really restricting guest access or guest use is on that list of things that may happen. And I think, and I really raise it to also just put it up against what Charlotte was saying and why this is such a big planning process is because you all know sort of controlling the behavior of students in this age range isn't the easiest thing to do. We will have to have more prohibitions on their behavior than we're used to and than they're used to. And so really thinking about how to implement that is part of the challenge that we'll be looking at. And I imagine we'll be asking families and parents to help us on that front.
We're about out of time. There are a couple questions we didn't get to that I want to address just quickly. One question was about awarding IB credit with all the new exams or perhaps AP credit. The registrar, the college will continue to award credit based on any changes that have been made with the International Baccalaureate program or the Advanced Placement program. So your students will not be impacted by that. There were also several questions regarding deferring admission. And if you have more questions and would like to talk more about that, please feel free to email me, and you can email admission@scrippscollege.edu, and we can have those conversations about the options for deferring admission. But it's right now, right at 5 o'clock. Want to be thoughtful of everyone's time on a Friday afternoon. But I want to thank Amy, Charlotte, and Laura so much for your time, and for the participants and the great questions about the academic life, the student experience, the state of the college. Your student has many choices, I'm sure. We would obviously love to see them be part of our community. I hope you can see how much we love this community. And I think it's a very special place, and I feel very fortunate to work here, and I feel so fortunate to have the opportunity to help shape the incoming class. So with that, be safe and have a good weekend.
Thank you. Goodbye.